Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Relationships. But before we begin, don't forget about Lost Genre AITA Daily, a channel dedicated exclusively to Am I the A-hole? Now let's get started with the first story. This one's from user Bubblegum Beauty. Should I ask my neighbor out? To give some context, me, 30 female, and my neighbor, 42 male, have lived next to each other for nearly 2 years, but we didn't really get to know each other until these last 6-7 months, basically just around when lockdown started. We were always friendly with each other, but never really sat down to have a full conversation. The first time we really hung out was when my mom left my apartment door wide open and my dog bolted. Now, I'm 5'2" and have pretty mild asthma. I tried to chase after him, but I lost him. I searched for about an hour or two before I headed home. I looked like a mess. My eyes were obviously puffy from crying, mascara streaming down my face, the whole shebang. He was throwing some stuff out and noticed me and asked me if I was okay. I explained what happened and he helped me look for my dog for another hour before we ended up finding him. Safe to say, I cried again, lol. After that, I baked some sweets as a thank you because it couldn't have been easy dealing with me when I was being hysterical. He was grateful. From that point on, we talked more and more. We ended up becoming friends not long after and started hanging out. Started walking our dogs together, eating dinner together every now and then, watching movies together, and on especially rough days after work, we have a drink together. To say the least, he's an awesome lockdown buddy. Over time, I began to have feelings for him, which was different for me because I don't usually date men 12 years older than me, but I couldn't help it. I mean, yeah, he was visually appealing, but he treats me so good. I feel like I can have actual conversations with him. We just click really well. He gets my heart all fluttery, like one time I was talking and stopped and apologized because I felt I was talking too much. He laughed and said, "Keep talking. I like the sound of your voice." And I swear I could have burped butterflies. A part of me thinks he feels the same way, but I could also just be misinterpreting his kindness. I don't know what I should do because if I'm wrong, it could make things between us really awkward. And he is much older than me, which I know people tend to think large age gaps in couples are weird. What should I do? Okay, well now we're gonna take a look at a few community comments with advice and OP's responses, and then we have OP's update. One betting disc please says, "My wife and I are 12 years apart. We are having our first child. We are best friends. She asked me out first. Do it." And OP responds, "This is wholesome as heck." Then LilBug89 says, "Maybe just casually ask if he wants to have an outdoor picnic dinner with you or something. You could say you appreciate how kind he's been to you and wanted to do something special to thank him. Maybe dress a little nicer than he's seen you in so it creates a different vibe. If it still feels like butterflies at the end, I'd ask him out officially. I'd just make sure to include something like, 'I think you're a great guy. I'd be interested in going on a date if you're up for it. If not, I'm fine remaining good neighbors and friends.' That way, he doesn't feel pressured because you may be one of the few social contacts he has at the moment and he may be worried about losing that." To which OP replies, "This is actually a very good idea because regardless of what happens, I still want to be close to him." Then CherryPerry95 says, "I know age gaps can be controversial on here, but I say go with it. My fiance is 12 years older than me and I went through all of the same feelings when we first met. I was head over heels and he's the most supportive and kind partner I could ask for. I never in a million years thought I'd be marrying someone older than me, but it worked so well for us. Life is too short. If he treats you well and makes you giddy, you just can't pass that up. Good luck." And OP responds, "Something he does that makes my heart melt? If we hang out and it gets late, he likes to walk me back home, only a few doors down, but he always insists. And he says, 'Good night, little miss,' and does an invisible hat tip, or when he's leaving my apartment it's, 'Good night, madam.' It's just so weird. I feel like giddy, like teen again, lol. Like, I know this is just legitimate kindness, but it makes me happy that he does it nonetheless. And finally, Confidence Hunter says, for me personally, 20 years is a large gap. 12 is meh, not so much. How about start dropping hints on him to show that you are interested in him? You know, like sitting closer to him when you're together, or even start flirting. And OP says, 12 years is just large for me because the oldest I've ever dated was 2 years older than me. I try being a little flirty, but I'm honestly really bad at it. Okay, I think we know enough to move on with the update, so let's get going. We're dating! Here's how it happened. I took in a lot of the mixed advice given. I decided to make a move on one of the nights we had dinner plans. Well, more or less a move. It was more like just building up enough courage to be blunt about it. Basically, he was mixing the stir fry in the pan on the stove while I was cutting up some more veggies, and I just went, F it, and looked at him and said, hey, I want you to know I really like you, like more than a friend, and I'm hoping we could go out on a date sometime, but I want you to know I'm also okay with remaining friends. He did that thing where you pause and stand there to process and take information. Then he spoke and said, I've been wanting to ask you out, but I honestly thought you wouldn't date an old man. I call him old man as a joke. And so we decided to consider that night our first date since we were already making dinner, lol. It went really well. We watched Dirty Dancing and he walked me home. And I gave him a kiss goodnight. We've been on a couple more dates since then, including a picnic date and an IKEA date because I needed new furniture, lol. We haven't put a label on it yet, obviously, because it's so new, but I'm grateful for all the advice and support. Hopefully, I'll update again in a few months. Well, good for you, OP. Congratulations. You took the plunge, you were successful. It doesn't get any better than that, right? Alright, now let's move on to the next story. This one's from user Throwaway Advice 12. I, 29 female, keep finding long hairs in my bathroom, which is strange because my husband, 32 male, is bald and I have a short pixie crop hairstyle. This started a few weeks ago. While cleaning the bathroom, I found a number of long hair strands over my bathroom wall by the shower. This struck me as very odd because not only does my husband not have hair, I also wear a very cropped short hairstyle, so it's impossible for the strands I found to belong to either me or my husband. Confused, I washed them away, but couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided not to mention it, but kept looking out for them. There seems to be a pattern that there are hairs appearing when I'm either at work or out for a long period of time. I feel like I'm going crazy and feel like I shouldn't just immediately go to my husband cheating on me with a longer haired woman. I asked my husband about it and he just shrugged, which makes me more paranoid as surely this is something that's strange, so why is he so blasé about it? I'm starting to think he's playing it down to stop me from finding out the truth. It happened again 2 days ago and I asked my husband again. He dismissed it, but this time admitted it's strange, but told me the only explanation is that they must be my hairs. They are not, and after saying so, now he'll just ignore me if I bring it up. I don't want to assume my husband is cheating on me and accuse him of such over something so ridiculous, but I'm driving myself into the ground trying to work out how the hairs have got there without my husband dismissing it as nothing. During lockdown, we haven't had any visitors that I know of, so I can rule out his sister. Well, this sounds a bit maddening, doesn't it, OP? I mean, you find the hairs, you don't know where they're coming from, and your husband apparently has no idea where they're coming from either. I guess a case like this, it would be easy to jump into conclusions, right? But first, let's go through some community comments and then an update to find out what actually happened on this story. Johnny4256 says, start collecting all the hairs until one day you have enough of them to create a persuasive wig out of it. Once you have the wig, wear it and sit in the living room, your back facing the front door. When your husband walks through, pretend to be the mistress or record his reaction with a hidden camera. If he is confused as to who is in the living room, he's not cheating. If he says, "What are you doing here?" you got a problem. Hope this helps. Then Holy Ye Lemons says, Do you do your laundry at a public laundromat? Or share washers and dryers with anyone? Or is there anyone you have been in contact with during this time that has long hair? While unlikely, that may explain finding hairs once or twice. But if it's recurring, especially in the shower, I don't think you are unreasonable to be suspicious. To this, Skuobiime says, yes! Or if you had long hair at some point in the past year, I cut mine off in March and I'm still finding my own long hairs in clothing and around the house up until we moved. I would look for color and thickness as an indicator as to if it's yours from the past or someone else's. Then TX Data Pro says, are the sheets being washed, changed more often than they used to be? Is the garbage being taken out anywhere in the house more frequently? Then Jokonot says, okay, the hair has to have gotten there somehow. I think the negative end of the possibilities have been pretty well covered, so is it possible your husband has a secret border collie? And finally, Unmotivated Workaholic says, if it's a regular occurrence, just pretend to go to work sometime and stay hidden outside and watch what happens. Well, considering these were the top 5 pieces of advice, some were I guess just joking, especially the one about the weird wig thing or the border collie, and some are also good questions, but OP didn't reply to any. So now, let's go take a look at the update to see what actually happened. I ultimately decided against getting a secret camera setup because, ironically enough, I didn't want to betray my partner's trust. Though part of me wanted to get one to squash any worries of someone living in my walls, as per some comments said. I did plan to leave work early, which is something I've never done before. My boss allowed me to leave after a half day. Upon returning home, nothing seemed amiss. I was expecting another car on the drive or parked outside on the street. There was no other car I didn't recognize. Quietly letting myself in, I was immediately confused. In the hallway, there was a pair of shoes I didn't recognize. And not only that, they looked like men's shoes. Standing in the hallway, trying to work out what to do, if I should sneak around or make my presence known. Before I could decide, my husband walked out of the kitchen with 2 cups of tea. By my husband's face, it was obvious he was surprised to see me. Playing along with naivete, I asked my husband how he could have known I was coming home early to make me tea. Expecting my husband to lie, he surprised me by sitting me down and explaining everything. At the beginning of lockdown, his friend, someone I am not at all close with because we only met once, was evicted, lost his job, and had been couch surfing. So for some days over the past couple of weeks, this guy has been traveling to our house and with the acceptance of my husband, using our bathroom to freshen up to attend interviews. He was also borrowing shirts and suits from my husband. As it turns out, my husband's friend has long hair and a beard. So it turns out my husband isn't cheating on me, but was hiding the fact his long-haired friend was coming over to use our shower. After his shower, I ended up meeting Dave, and he turned out to be a very nice bloke, just down on his luck. I wished him the best for his socially distanced interview, and he went on his way. I asked my husband why he didn't just tell me, as I wouldn't have had a problem with it. Turns out, he was worried about my reaction and me not liking his friend or approving of the situation. He also told me Dave was very embarrassed about the whole situation and didn't want people to know what he was having to do. I told my husband I was starting to believe he was cheating, and he was shocked, having not even considered those implications while attempting covering for his friend. I told him this whole thing was ridiculous and even suggested his friend live with us until he's back on his feet. Funnily enough, my worst case scenario, which was mentioned in the replies, was either a homeless man or woman living in my walls and sneakingly using the shower. And though this seems to be half the case, I'm glad it wasn't a stranger as such that wasn't unwelcome and someone that wasn't living in my walls. Whoa, well, that was a very nice twist. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you were also thinking the husband's cheating or something really weird is going on, right? It turns out the husband's just a good friend. And it turns out OP is really cool too, as she offered the friend to stay over with him. So this is a really good outcome to the story. So overall, the video has had 2 really nice stories. The first one was sweet, and the second one had a really nice twist. And so we've reached the end of the video. I truly hope you guys liked it. If you did, just go ahead and click like, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, don't forget to check out my new channel, the link's in the description. And finally, go ahead and visit the Lost Genre subreddit where you can share your own stories or cross-post stories from other subs. And having said all of that, I will see you guys in the next video.